Good morning everyone. So we are the group 5 and we are going to report about this Batas Pambansa bilang 232 or an act providing for the establishment and maintenance of an integrated system of education. So when we say integrated, it means coordinated. So it is an act that for providing for the establishment and maintenance of a coordinated system of education. So, 1. General provisions. First chapter, preliminary matters. When you say preliminary, it's prior. Una. So, section 1, the title. So, this act shall be known as the Education Act of 1982. So, section 1 tells us that this Batas Pambansa shall be titled the Education Act of 1982. Section 2, coverage. So, what does it cover? So, this act shall apply to and govern both formal and non-formal systems in public and private schools in all level of the entire educational system. So, this act shall cover and govern both formal and the non-formal systems of public and private schools. So, ito yung cover ng batas na ito. Yung formal and non-formal and private and public schools in all levels. Next. Chapter 2. The Declaration of the Basic State Policy and Objectives. So, Section 3 na tayo. So, Section 3, so the Declaration of Basic Policy. So, it is the policy of the state to establish and maintain a complete, adequate, when we say adequate is enough, and integrated system of education relevant to the goals of the national development. So, it is the policy of the state to establish and maintain and have a complete and enough and coordinated system of education that is relevant to the goals of the national development. Next. Toward this end, the government shall ensure within the context of free and democratic system, maximum contribution of the educational system to the attainment of the following national development goals. So, here are the national development goals. So, number 1, to achieve and maintain an accelerating rate of economic and development in social progress. So, when you say accelerated, it's somewhat growth in fast pace. So, ito yung so the first national developmental goal is to achieve and maintain a fast pace of growth in the rate of the economic and development and in social progress. So, the second one, to ensure the maximum participation of all the people in the attainment of enjoyment of the benefits of such growth, and to achieve and strengthen national unity and consciousness and develop and promote desirable cultural, moral, and spiritual values in the changing world. So, the third goal is to achieve and strengthen national unity, so pagkakaisa, and consciousness, and preserve and develop and promote desirable cultural, moral, and spiritual values in the changing world. So, the state shall promote the right of every individual to relevant quality education, regardless of the sex, age, creed, socioeconomic status, physical and developmental conditions, racial and ethnic origin, political and other affiliation. So the state shall be therefore promote and maintain equality of access to education as well as the enjoyment of all benefits of education by all its citizens. So, the state, ito yung bansa, shall therefore promote and maintain, so yung equality. When we say equality, yung pantay-pantay na access sa education, whether you are Subanen, whether you're Cebuano, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, you have this equal access to education. So, everyone can enjoy the benefits of education as long as you are the country's citizen. Next. So, the state shall promote the right of the nation's cultural communities in the exercise of their right to develop themselves within the context of their cultures, customs, traditions, interests, and belief, and recognize education as an instrument for their maximum participation in the national development and in ensuring their involvement in achieving national unity. So, the state daw no, shall promote the right of the nation's cultural communities. So, ito yung mga natives, yung mga tribes, and whatever you call them. These are the group of people who have this certain culture. They have their traditions. They have this certain belief that kanang sa yung sa kanila lang, di ba? Yun yung mga cultural groups, cultural communities that to develop themselves in the context of uh, uh, to develop themselves by recognizing education as an instrument in their participation for the national development. Next. Section 4, Declaration of Objectives. So objectives, it's like similar to the word goal, tumong. So the educational system aims to, so its aim. So what are the aims of this law? So 1. Provide for a broad general education that will assist each individual in the peculiar ecology of his own society. 2. Attain his potentials as a human being. So, makuha niya yung potential niya bilang sa tao. Enhance the range and quality of individual and group participation in the basic functions of society. So, ma-enhance yung range and quality, yung kalidad ng individual at group participation nila sa mga basic function nila sa society. Acquire the essential educational foundation of his development in productive to the versatile citizen. Moto yung una. Pangalawa, train the nation's manpower in the middle level skills for national development. So it is to, so ikaduha ay yung pangalawa is to train the nation's manpower. Sino yun? Yung mga tao in the middle level skills for the development, of course, ng bansa. Number 3, develop the profession that will provide leadership for the nation in the advancement of knowledge for improving the quality of human life. And number 4, respond effectively to the changing needs and conditions of the nation through a system of educational planning and evaluation. Towards the realization of these objectives and pursuant to the Constitution, all educational institutions shall aim to inculcate love of country, teach the duties of citizenship, and develop moral character, personal discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. Furthermore, the educational system shall reach out to educationally deprived communities. So when we say deprived, it means lacking, extremely lacking, in order to give meaningful reality to their membership in the national society, to enrich their civic participation in the community and national life, and to unify all Filipinos into a free and just nation. So 2. The Educational Community, Chapter 1, Preliminary Provisions. Section 5, Declaration of Policy and Objectives. It is likewise declared government policy to foster at all times a spirit of shared purposes and cooperation among the members and elements of the educational community and between the community and other sectors of society. So the realization that only in such an atmosphere can be true goals and objectives of education can be fulfilled. Next. Moreover, the state shall, number 1, aid and support the natural right and duty of parents in the rearing of youth through the educational system. Number 2, promote and safeguard the welfare and interest of the students by defining their rights and obligations according to their privileges and encourage the establishment of other relationships between them and other members of the school community. Number 3, promote the economic status of social economic status of all school personnel, uphold their rights, define their obligations, and improve their living and working conditions and career prospects. Number 4, extend support to promote the viability of those institutions through which parents, students, and school personnel seek to attain their educational goals. Section 6, Definition and Coverage. So educational community refers to those persons and groups of persons, such as associated in institutions involved in organized teaching and learning systems. So the members and elements of the educational community are number one, parents. So these are the guardians or the heads of institutions or foster homes which the custody of the people or the student. Number two, if there are parents, then of course the students. So these are the enrolled in and who are regularly attending an educational institution of secondary or higher level of person engaged in formal study. So pupils are those who regularly attend a school of elementary level under the supervision of the tutelage of teacher. So when we say students, so these are the students who study the high school or college, whereas in pupils are those who study elementary. Three, school personnel. So all the persons working for an educational institution, which includes the following. Letter A, teaching or academic staff. So are all persons engaged in actual teaching and or research assignments, either on full-time or part-time basis, in a level of educational system. B, school administrators, or all persons occupying policy implementing positions having to do with the function of the school in all levels. Letter C, academic non-teaching personnel or all other school personnel not falling under the definition and coverage of teaching and academic staff, school administrators and academic non-teaching personnel. Number four, schools or institutions recognized by the state which undertake educational operations. So Section 7, the community participation. So every educational institution shall provide for the establishment of appropriate bodies through which members of the educational community may discuss several issues and communicate information and suggestions for assistance and support of the school and for the promotion of their common interests. So representatives from each subgroup of the educational community shall sit and participate in these bodies. So the rules and procedures of which must be approved by them and duly published. Chapter 2, the rights. So the rights of parents. So in addition to the other rights existing laws, all parents who have children enrolled in school should have the following rights. So 1, the right to organize by themselves or with teachers for the purpose of providing a forum for the discussion of matters relating to school program and for ensuring the full cooperation of parents and teachers in the formulation of the efficient implementation of such programs. Number 2, the right to access to any official record directly relating to the children who are under the parental responsibility. So, Section 9, the right of students in school. So, in addition to other rights, so that rights and subject of the limitation prescribed by law and regulations, the students and pupils in all schools shall enjoy the following rights. 1, the right to receive primarily through competent instruction, relevant quality education in line with national goals and conducive to their full development as person with human dignity. So they have the right to have this quality education. Number 2, the right to freely choose their field of study, subject to existing curricula, and to continue their course therein up to graduation, except in cases of deficiency or violation of disciplinary regulation. So they have the right to choose their own course, the course they want to be, they want their future profession to be. So the third one, the right to school guidance and counseling services for decisions and selecting the alternatives in fields of work suited to these potentials. So number 4, the right to access his own school records, the confidentiality of which the school shall maintain and preserve. So number 5, the right to the issuance of official certificates, diplomas, transcript of records, grades, transfer credentials, and other similar documents within 30 days from request. Number 6, the right to publish a student newspaper or similar publications, as well as the right to invite resource persons during assemblies, symposia, and other similar nature. So, number 7, right to the free expression of opinions and suggestions to the effective channels of communication with appropriate academic channels and administrative bodies for the school institution. So the right to form, establish, join, participate in organizations or societies recognized by the school to foster intellectual, cultural, spiritual, and physical growth and development, or to form, establish, join, and maintain organizations and societies for purposes not contrary to the laws. So the students have the right to establish, to join, or even to create organizations that is recognized by the school. So as long as it doesn't break some laws, so they have the right to join these organizations. Next, the right to be free from involuntary contributions except those approved by their own organizations and society. So they have the right to be free. So hindi sila mapipilit na magbayad unless it is approved by the organization and the society. So the section 10, the rights of the school personnel. So if the students, the parents have the rights, so the school personnel also have the right. So in addition to the following rights provided by the law, so the following rights shall be enjoyed by the school personnel. So ito yung mga rights ng school personnel. So number 1, right to be free, the right to free expression of opinion and suggestions, and to effective channels of communication with an appropriate academic and administrative bodies of school or institution. So they have the right to suggest, to have their opinions, to express their opinions with things that is somewhat affiliated to the academic and administrative bodies in the institution. So number 2, the right to be provided with legal free service by the appropriate government office in case of public school personnel and through the school authorities concerned. So in the case of the private school personnel, when charged in an administrative or civil criminal proceedings by parties other than the school or regulatory authorities concerned for actions committed directly, lawful discharge of professional duties and or defense of school policies. So number 3, the right to establish, join, maintain labor organizations and or professional and regulating organizations of their choice to promote their welfare and defend their interests. So they have the right to establish, to join, or to maintain labor organizations, so to promote their welfare and to defend their interests as long as it doesn't break the law. So section 11. The special rights and the privileges of teaching or academic staff. So, the rights of the academic staffs or the teaching. Further to the rights mentioned in the preceding section, every member of the teaching academic staff shall enjoy the following rights and privileges. So, number 1, the right to be free from compulsory assignments not related to their duties as defined in their appointments or employment contracts unless compensated, therefore, conformably to existing laws. So they have the right to be free from compulsory assignments. Pag hindi sila compensated, hindi sila binayaran, so they have the right to refuse such assignment. So number 2, the right to intellectual property consistent with applicable law. So they have the right over their own writings, their own intellectual property. So number 3, the teacher shall be deemed persons in authority when in the discharge of lawful duties and responsibility and shall therefore be accorded due respect and protection. So the teachers, so they are in authority. So therefore, so they shall be respected and protected. So number 4, teachers shall be accorded the opportunity to choose alternative career lines either in school administration, in classroom teaching, and other purposes of career advancement. So they have the right to be accorded to the opportunities to choose these alternative career lines. So sila ni mamili either in school administration or in teaching and other purposes. So section 12, special rights of the school administration. So the school administrator shall, in accordance to the existing laws, regulations and policies of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports, be accorded sufficient administrative discretion necessary for the efficient and effective performance of their functions. So the school administrator shall be deemed persons in authority while in the discharge of lawful duties and responsibilities and shall therefore be respected, and protected. Now that's for my part.
Section 18. Obligation of non-academic teaching personnel. So, non-academic teaching personnel shall improve himself professionally by keeping abreast of the latest trends and techniques in his profession. So, non-teaching profession has also obligation in our school. So, it is to improve himself and to and to and to and to always keeping himself to the latest techniques of his profession. Second, assume, promote, and maintain a professional attitude towards his work. Student, teachers, administrator, and administrative staff, and relate with them in supportive and cordial manner. Third, promote and maintain an atmosphere conducive to service and learning. Chapter 3. The Educational Systems. Formal Education. Section 19. Declaration of Policy. The state recognizes that formal education or the school systems is society's primary learning system and therefore the main instrument of the achievement of the country's educational goals and objectives. Section 20. The definition. Formal education. So, formal education refers to the hierarchically or structured and chronologically graded learning organized and provided by formal school system and for which certification is required in order for the learner to progress through the grades and move to higher level. Formal education shall correspond to the following levels. So section 3 focus on the definition of the formal education and what could be the formal education refers to. So formal education is a formal school system which required in order to for a student to be formally educated in our school. So formal education shall correspond to the following levels. So formal education has level and it corresponds to first elementary education. So the first stage of compulsory formal education primarily concerned with providing basic education and usually corresponding to 6 or 7 grades including preschool programs. So formal education starts with elementary education. So in this type of level, student learn on basic education which provide them learnings that help them to improve themselves. Second, secondary education. The state of formal education following the elementary level concerned primarily with continuing basic education and expanding it to include the learning employable gainful skills usually corresponding to 4 years of high school. So, secondary education is a continuation in elementary education which also practice some basic education but add and learnings that improve our skills that help for in our future. So third is the tertiary education. Tertiary education is the post-secondary schooling in is higher education leading to degree specific profession or discipline. So tertiary education is which you choose your degree or specific profession to practice and help you. Section 21. Objectives of elementary education. The objectives of elementary education are first, to provide the knowledge and develops the skills, attitudes, and values essential to personal development and necessary for living and contributing at developing and changing social media. Second, to provide learning experience which increase the child awareness and responsiveness to the changes in and just demands of society and to prepare him for constructive and effective involvement. Third, to promote work and intensify the child knowledge of edification with and love for the nation and the people to which he belongs. And last is to promote work experience which develop the child orientation to the world of work and creativity and prepare himself to engage in honest and gainful work. Section 22. Objectives of secondary education. The objectives of secondary education are first, to continue to promote and objectives of elementary education and to discover and enhance the different aptitudes and interests of the student so as to equip him with skills for productive endeavor and prepare him for tertiary schooling. Section 23. Objectives of tertiary education. The objectives of tertiary education are first, to provide a general education program that will promote national identity, cultural consciousness, and moral integrity and spiritual vigor. Second, to train the nation's power and skills required for national development. Third, to develop the professions that will provide leadership for the nation and to advance knowledge through research work and apply new knowledge for improving the quality of human life and corresponding effectively to changing societal needs and conditions. Chapter 2, Non-Formal Education and Specialized Educational Services. Section 24, Specialized Educational Services. The state further recognizes its responsibility to provide, within the context of the professional educational system, service to meet special needs to certain clientele, these specific types, which shall be guided by the basic policies of the state embodied in the general provision of this act include: first, work education or practical arts is a program of basic education which aims to develop the right attitudes toward work and technical vocational education, post-secondary education, but non-degree programs leading to 1, 2, or 3-year certificates in preparation for a group of middle-level occupation. Second, special education. The education of persons who are physically, mentally, emotional, socially, and culturally different from the so-called normal individuals that require modification of school practices, services to develop to their maximum capacity. So, special education is for those learners that different from normal. Non-formal education. Any organized school-based educational activities undertaken by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports and other agencies aimed at attaining specific learning education for particular clientele, especially the illiterate and out-of-school youth and the adult, distinct from and outside the regular offerings of the school system. Chapter 3, Establishment of Schools. Section 25, Establishment of Schools. All schools shall be established in accordance with law. The establishment of new national schools and the conversion of existing schools from elementary to national secondary, from secondary to national secondary, or tertiary schools shall be by law, provided that any private schools proposed to be established must incorporate as a non-stock educational corporation in accordance with the approbation of the Corporation Code of the Philippines. This requirement to incorporate may be waived in the case of a family administered preschool institution. Section 26, Definition of terms. The terms in this chapter are defined. First, school are duly established institution of learning educational institution. Second, public schools are educational institutions established and administered by the government.
Section 26, Definition of terms. The term used in the chapter are defined as follows. Number 1. Schools. Schools are duly established institutions of learning or educational institutions. Public schools are educational institutions established and administered by the government. Private schools are educational institutions maintained and administered by private individuals or groups. Section 27. Recognition of schools. The educational operations of schools shall be subject to the prior authorization of the government and shall be affected by recognition. In the case of a government-operated schools, whether local, regional, or national, recognition of educational programs and or operations shall be deemed granted stimulously with establishment. In all other cases, the rules and regulations governing recognition shall be prescribed and enforced by the Ministry of Education. Culture and sports, defining therein who are qualified to apply, providing for a permit system, stating the condition for the grant of recognition and for its cancellation and withdrawal, and providing for related matters. Section 28. Effects of recognition. Punishable violations. The issuance of certificate of recognition to school shall have the following effects. Number 1. It transforms the temporary permit to a permanent authority to operate. It entitled the school or college to give the students who have completed the course for which recognition is granted a certificate, title, or diploma, and it it shall entitle the student who have graduated from said recognized course or courses to all the benefits and privileges enjoyed by graduates in similar courses studied in all school recognized by the government. Operation of schools, educational programs without authorization, and or operation thereof, violation of the terms of recognition, are hereby declared punishable violation subject to the penalties provided in the Act. Section 29. Voluntary accreditation. The ministry shall encourage programs of voluntary accreditation for institutions which desire to meet standards of quality over and above minimum required for state recognition. And Chapter 4. Eternal Organization of School. Section 30. Organization of Schools. Each school shall establish such internal organization as well best enabled it to carry out its academic and administrative functions, subject to limitation provided by law. Each school establish such arrangement for the peaceful settlement of disputes between or among the members of the educational community. Section 31. Governing Board. Every government college or university as a tertiary institution and every private school shall have a governing board, pursuant to its charter or the corporation code of the Philippines as the case may be. Section 32. Personnel transactions. The terms and conditions of employment of personnel in government schools shall be governed by the civil service, budgetary and compensation laws and rules. In private schools, dispute arising from employer-employee relations shall fall under jurisdiction of the Ministry of Labor and Employment, as provided for by law and regulations, provided that in view to the special employment status of the teaching and academic non-teaching personnel, under special rules in the advancement of knowledge, standards set or promulgated jointly by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports and by the Ministry of Labor and Employment shall be applied by the Ministry and provided further that every private school shall establish and implement an appropriate system within the school for the prompt and orderly settlement of provisions of Articles 262 and 263 of the Labor Code. Chapter 5. School Finance and Assistance. Section 33. Declaration of Policy. It is hereby declared to be the policy of the state and the national government shall contribute to the financial support of educational programs pursuant to the goals of education as declared in the Constitution. Towards this end, the government shall adopt measures to broaden access to education through financial assistance and other forms of incentives of schools, teachers, pupils, and students, and encourage and stimulate private support to educational through inter alia, fiscal, and other assistance measures. A. Funding public schools. Section 34. National funds. Public school shall continue to be funded primarily from national funds, provided that local government shall be encouraged to assume operation of local public schools on the basis of national fund participation and adequate revenue sources which may be assigned by the national government for the purpose. Section 35. Financial aid and assistance to public secondary schools. The national government shall extend financial aid and assistance to public secondary schools established and maintained by local governments, including barangay high schools. Section 36. Share of local government. Provinces, cities, and municipalities and barangays shall appropriate funds in their annual budgets for the operation and maintenance of public secondary schools on the basis of national fund participation. Section 37. Special Education Fund. The proceeds of the Special Education Fund accruing to local government shall be used exclusively for the purpose enumerated in Section 1 of Republic Act number 5447 and in accordance with rules and regulations issued by the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports and the Ministry of the Budget, said proceeds shall be considered a local fund and shall be subject to Presidential Decrees number 477, Presidential Decree number 1375 and other applicable local budget laws and regulations.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. My name is Rodelyn Galvez. This is the continuous report of Group 5, Batas Pambansa 232 under Chapter 5, Letter A, Funding of Public Schools. Section 38, so tuition and other school fees. Secondary and post-secondary school may charge tuition and other school fees in order to improve facilities or to accommodate more students. So, the high schools, vocational colleges, tertiary schools, nagkakaroon ng school fees or tuition just to improve the facilities for the school and to accommodate many students. So, pag dumami na yung students, mahirapan na yung school mag-accommodate. So, this money is used to accommodate and to build more buildings, maybe, and for the facilities. And then Section 39, income from other sources. Government-supported educational institution may receive grants, legacies, donations, and gifts for purposes allowed by existing laws. Furthermore, income generated from production activities and from auxiliary enterprises may be retained and used for school concern in accordance with rules and regulation jointly issued consistently with pertinent appropriation and budgetary laws by Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports and Commission on Adults. So the other income of the school sources, the other sources of the school came from the government. The support from the government, the received grants, legacies, the donations, and gifts, and this is money, and this money is used only for the concern of the school, for the to generate the activities of the school, and this is under by the laws in accordance by the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports and Commission on Adult. And next is the letter B, the funding of private school. So funding of private schools may be funded from capital investment or equity contribution, tuition fees and other school charges, grants, loans, subsidies, passive investment income, and income from other sources. So the funding of private school came from the equity contribution. This is from the maybe from the parents or students. And then the tuition fees, nagkakaroon ng fund ang school from the tuition fees of the students enrolled. Then the charges, grants, loans, and capital investment of the school nag-i-invest ang school ng sariling money, so yung profit, so it became the fund of the school, private schools. And then section 41, government assistance. The government, in recognition of their complementary role in the educational system, may provide aid to the program of private schools in the form of grants or scholarships or loans from government financial institution, provided that such program meets certain defined educational requirements and standards and contribute to attainment of national development goals. So the government has the obligation to support also to the private schools. This is the goal for the attainment of national development goal of about educational. So the government also support for the public school. They give assistance. And then next, section 42, tuition and other fees. Each private school such as shall determine its rate of tuition and other school fees or charges. So dapat nakadetermine ang rate ng tuition of the school, the private school. The rate and charges adopted by the school pursuant to this provision shall be collectible under application or authorized subject to rules and regulation promulgated by the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports. So the tuition of the private school must be collectible. Hindi sila basta-basta mag-demand lang ng tuition. So naka-monitor din siya by the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports. And then the section 43, income from other sources. The income from other sources of private school are this one. Any private school duly recognized by the government may be receive any grant and legacy donations, gift, bequest, or device from any individual, institution, corporation, foundation, trust, or philanthropic organizations, or research institution, or organized as may be authorized by the law. Furthermore, private schools are authorized to engage in any auxiliary enterprises to generate income primarily to finance their educational operation or to reduce the need to increase student fees. So, maraming sources din ang mga private schools. Meron din silang mga nare-receive na donations bukod sa support from the government, tuition fees ng mga estudyante. So, yung mga kawang gawa, yung mga kusang binibigay like philanthropic organization, yung mga kusang bigay donations ng mga organizations, mga institution, yan nagkakaroon din ng fund ng mga private school. So next is the section 44, the institutional funds. The proceeds from tuition fees and other school charges as well as other income of school shall be treated as institutional fund. Schools may pool their institutional fund in whole or in part under joint management for the purpose of generating additional final resources. So, yung fund ng school is ginagawang institutional fund yan lahat. Part or lahat. Buong pera nila is considered as institutional fund just to generate pandagdag gagastusin ng school din yon. Na letter C is the incentive to education, section 45. Declaration of policy. This goals to provide an incentive program to encourage participation of the community in the development of educational sector. So, magkakaroon ng incentive para po ma-encourage yung mga yung communities, yung society about educational development, sa ma-encourage yung mga parents sa pagpapaaral. So, pag malago yung isang school, maraming activities, so mas ma-encourage yung society about educational matter sa pagpapaaral ng mga anak. So, nakaka-encourage yun. So, dapat merong incentive to education. So, Section 46, relating to school property, real property such as lands, buildings, and other improvements, their own use directly and exclusively for educational purposes shall be subject to the real property tax based on assessment of 15% of the market value of such property. So this section is related for the school property. Lahat yung mga property ng school is subjected into tax. So may mga exemption din sila according sa BIR na ang declare kung ano yung babayaran ng isang school sa mga property, yung mga real properties, yung mga land, like nagbebenta ng lands, tapos yung income ng school. So this act is under the Republic Act 547. So next is the Section 47 relating to gifts or donation of school. All gifts or donation favor of any school, college, or university recognized by the government shall not be subjected to tax. So lahat ng mga donation or gift na natatanggap ng school, yung mga galing sa mga donate or mga bigay ng gobyerno, hindi na siya babawasan pa ng tax. Babayar halimbawa, magbibigay ng 20,000 tapos ilang percent ang tax dapat doon according sa BIR. But all donation and gifts is exemption from the tax. Non-taxable siya. Hindi siya magbabayad ng tax. So, provided such gift or donation shall be for the improvement of classrooms and laboratory or library facilities and shall not inure to the benefit of any officer, director, officials, or owners of the school, or paid out a salary, adjustments, or allowance and any form of nature whatsoever except in support of faculty or professional chairs, professorial chairs. So, non-taxable ang lahat ng donation and gifts na nare-receive ng private school, but that money is just for the school facilities only. Hindi siya po pwede na ipangsweldo sa mga personnels like teachers and other like guards. Hindi siya pwedeng gamitin doon for salary or expenses ng mga activities. Gagamitin lang siya para sa mga pangangailangan ng school like sa library, laboratories, like that. Hindi siya po pwede. Depende na lang kung merong pag-support sa faculty or the may mga professors ng school. Tinatawag na professorial chairs. So, next is the Section 48 relating to earnings from established scholarship funds. All earnings from the investment of any duly established scholarship fund of any school recognized by the government, constituted from gifts to the school or under from contributions or other resources assigned to said fund by the school, if said earnings are actually used to fund additional scholarship grants to financially deserving students, shall be exempt from tax until the scholarship fund is fully liquidated, when the outstanding balance thereof shall be subject to tax. So, yung scholarship, may fund din ng scholarship ng school, yung depende sa recognized by the government. So, pag hindi pa na-liquidated ang scholarship sa mga scholar students, so, hindi siya taxable din. So, hindi siya babawasan, non-taxable din yung mga scholarship funds. So, the last is the Section 49. My last part, it's all about the school dispersal programs. All gains realized from the sale, disposition, or transfer of property, real or personal, of any duly established private schools, college, or university in pursuance of school dispersal program of the government or of the educational institution as approved by government shall be considered exempt from tax. So, if the total proceeds of the sale, so dito muna tayo, the school dispersal program. So, yung dispersal program, yung mga invest ng school na palawak to expand their fund, yung mga ini-invest na pera ng school, hindi na siya kinukuhanan ng tax ng school. Shall be considered exemption siya sa tax, ng taxable siya. But if the total proceeds of the sale are reinvested, so lahat ng total sale, lahat ng income ng dispersal program na reinvested in a new or existing duly established school, college, and university located in the dispersal site within 1 year. So, within 1 year, from 1 year, reinvest siya within 1 year from the date of such sale, mula ng date ng sale na yan, ni-reinvest siya from the date 1 year, transfer or disposition. Otherwise, all taxes due on the gain realized from the transaction shall immediately become due and payable. So, nagkakaroon na siya ng, counted na siya from the date, 1 year from the date ng transfer nung sale, ng nire-invest ng dispersal program. So, that's all. The next is to be reported by our other member of the group. So, section 50. Thank you.
I am Darlene Ledesma Puentes. So my topic, section 50 to section 51. Section 50, conversion to educational foundation. An educational institution may convert itself into a non-stock, non-profit educational foundation in accordance with the implementing rules to be issued jointly by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports and the Ministry of Finance. So, ang educational foundation, ito po yung pag-aaral na pwede mong maging pundasyon sa iyong sarili kapag ikaw ay kailangan ng trabaho. Ito yung maging pundasyon mo, na ito yung papel mo na kailangan para maka-apply ka ng trabaho. Section 52 o 51. Section 51, assistant to students. Government assistant to student. The government shall provide financial assistance to financially disadvantaged and deserving students. Such assistance may be in the form of state scholarship, grant in the assistance from the educational loan fund, or subsidies tuition rates in the state college universities. So, Section 51, ang government assistance, ito ay ibinibigay sa mga mag-aaral na mahirap at nag-aral ng mabuti at malaki ang grades. So, Section 52, grant of scholarship pursuant to existing laws. Educational institutions shall be encouraged to grant scholarship to students pursuant to the provision of existing laws, and such scholarship measure as many as may there to be provided for by law. So, Section 52, ito po yung ang paaralan ay naghikayat sa mga mag-aral na umapila o maging bahagi sa scholarship ng gobyerno. Dahil ito ang batas na kahit kanino ay pwedeng maging bahagi maging mabigyan ng scholarship. So, Section 53. Section 53. Assistance from the private sector, especially educational institution, business and industry, shall be encouraged to grant financial assistance to students, especially those undertaking research in the fields of science and technology, or in such projects as may be necessary within the context of national development. So, Section 53, ang Section 53, ito po yung ang private sector ay naghikayat ng gobyerno na magbigay ng financial, especially sa mga mag-aral na mahirap ay kailangan din nilang financial. Yun ang scholarship. Kasi gusto rin nilang makapag-aral sa private. So, Section 54. Section 54. The Declaration of Policy. The administration of the education system and pursuant to the provision of Constitution, the supervision and regulation of educational institutions are headed by vested in the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports without prejudice to the provision of the charter of any state college and university. So, Section 54, ito ay palisiya na dapat na sundin o rule of regulation na ang Ministry of Education, Sports and Culture ay dapat na ituro sa paaralan o college of university. So, Section 55. Organization. The ministry shall be headed by the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports, who shall be assisted by one of. Section 56. The National Board of Education is headed by abolished and its appropriation, personnel records and equipment headed by transferred to the office of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports. So, Section 56, ito ang National Board of Education inabolish and appropriation of personnel dahil inilipat ito dapat sa office of the Ministry of Culture and Sports dahil ito ay kanilang trabaho, ito ang nararapat. So, Section 57. Section 57. Function and power of the ministry. So, Section 57, function and powers of ministry, may function po ito na 7. So, the ministry shall formulate general education objectives and policy and adopt long-range educational plans. Ito yung function and power of the ministry. So, function of the power of ministry, number 2. Plan, development, and implementing program and project, educational and culture. So, ito yung mga plano na kailangan i-develop ang mga project about sa education and culture. Number 3, promulgate rules and regulation necessary for the administration, supervision, and regulation to the educational system in accordance with declaration policy. So, ito ang mga rules na kailangan na administration na is. So, Section 58. Report the Batasang Pambansa, the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports shall make an annual report to the Batasang Pambansa on the implementation of the National Basic Education Plan, the current condition of the educational sector, the effectiveness of the educational programs, the adequacy of and deficiency of the appropriation and status of expenditures, the impact of educational of the different region, the growth of enrollment and adequacy academic facilities. So, Section 58, ang Section 58 ito yung mga report na pambatasang pambansa. Section 59. To? Section 59. Section 59, Declaration of Policy. Declaration higher education will be geared towards the provision of the better quality education, the development of middle and high level manpower, and the intensification of research and extension service. The main thrust of higher education is to achieve equity, efficiency, and high quality. So, Declaration of Policy Higher Education, ito yung mga high level. Senior high school, college, ito yun. Section 60. Section 60. Organization of the Board of Higher Education. The Board of Higher Education is reconstituted as an advisory of body to the Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports. The board shall be composed of Deputy Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports, designated as chairman, and 4 other members of the appointed by the President of the Philippines. So, ito yung Section 60, Organization of the Board of Higher Education. Ito yung mga the Board of Higher Education. Section 51, Function of the Board of Higher Education. The board shall make policy recommendation.
Now let's proceed to Chapter 3, the Bureaus. So Section 62, the Bureau of Elementary Education. So the Bureau shall perform the following functions: conduct studies, formulate and develop and evaluate programs of educational standards for elementary education. So they have to do this. They have to conduct studies, they have to formulate, so they have to develop programs and educational standards for the elementary education. So number 2, undertake studies necessary for the preparation of prototype curricular designs, instructional materials, and teacher training programs for elementary education. Number 3, formulate guidelines to improve elementary school physical plans and equipment and general management of this school. Next, Section 63, the Bureau of Secondary Education. So the junior high school or the high school. So the Bureau shall perform the following functions: conduct studies to formulate and evaluate programs and educational standards for secondary education. So the Bureau of Secondary Education should formulate, should develop, and evaluate programs and educational standards, so mga standards for the secondary education. So number 2, develop curricular designs, prepare instructional materials, and prepare and evaluate programs to update the quality of teaching and non-teaching staff at the secondary level. So number 3, formulate guidelines to improve the secondary school physical plans and equipment and in general management of these schools. Next, the Section 64, the Bureau of Technical Vocational Education, so the TESDA. So the TESDA shall perform the following. So the Bureau of Technical and Vocational Education should do these following: So number 1, collaborate with other agencies in the formulation of manpower plans. So number 2, conduct studies, formulate, develop, and evaluate post-secondary vocational technical programs and recommend educational standards for these programs. And number 3, develop curricular designs and prepare instructional materials. Prepare and evaluate programs to upgrade the quality of teaching and teaching staff and formulate guidelines to improve the physical plan and equipment of the post-secondary vocational technical schools. So number 1, so they have to collaborate with other agencies. Number 2, they have to conduct studies to formulate and develop post-secondary vocational technical programs. And number 3, they have to develop curricular designs and prepare instructional materials for the post-secondary vocational technical schools. Number 65, Section 65. So the Bureau of Higher Education, the college. So the Bureau of Higher Education shall perform the following functions. Number 1, develop, formulate, and evaluate programs, projects, and educational standards for a higher education. So they have to develop, they have to formulate, or they have to evaluate programs and for projects and educational standards for this level of education. So number 2, they have to provide staff assistance to the Board of Higher Education in its policy formulation and advisory functions. So they have to provide staff assistance to the Board of Higher Education. So number 3, provide technical assistance to encourage institutional development programs and projects. Number 4, compile, analyze, and evaluate data on higher education and perform the functions provided by the law. 66. Section 66. The Bureau of Continuing Education. So after you graduate, you have to teachers especially have to do masters, doctorate. So that is the continuing education. So as the main implementing arm of non-formal education programs of the ministry, the Bureau shall provide the learning programs activities that shall, 1, serve as means of meeting and learning needs of those unable to avail themselves in the educational services of programs of formal education. Number 2, provide opportunities for the acquisitions of necessary skills to enhance and ensure continuing employability, efficiency, productivity, and competitiveness of the labor market. So number 3, serve as a means for expanding access to educational opportunities to citizens of varied interest, demographic characteristics, and socioeconomic origin or status. So Chapter 4, the regional offices. Section 67, the functions. So the regional office shall, number 1, formulate the regional plan of education based on national plan of the ministry, taking into account the specific needs and special traditions of the region. Number 2, implement education laws, policies, plans, programs, rules, and regulations of the ministry or agency in the regional area. Number 3, provide economical, efficient, and effective education services to the people in the area. Next, Number 5, miscellaneous provisions. So the Chapter 1, the penal administrative sanctions. So Section 68, the penal clause. So any person upon the conviction of act of the violation of the Section 28 of Chapter 3, Title 3, above all, shall be punished with a fine not less than 2,000 pesos nor more than 10,000 pesos or imprisonment for the maximum period of 2 years or both in the discretion of the court. So if the teacher break this, I don't know if teacher, but so if someone breaks this to break law or violation of the Section 28 of the Chapter 3, so they shall be fined with not less than 2,000 but not more than 10,000 and shall be imprisoned for the maximum of 2 years. Next, Section 69, the administrative sanction. So, the Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports may prescribe and impose such administrative sanctions as he may deem reasonable and appropriate in the implementing rules and regulations promulgated pursuant to this act for any following causes. So, number 1, so ano yung mga cause ng sanction? So, number 1, mismanagement of school operations. Number 2, gross inefficiency of teachers or non-teaching personnel. So, they are inefficient. They don't give this quality that the students deserve. So, number 3, fraud or deceit committed in connection with the application of the ministry permit or recognition. Number 4, failure to comply with the conditions or obligations prescribed by the code or its implementing rules and regulations. So, number 5, unauthorized operation of a school or course or any component thereof, or any violation of the requirement governing the advertisements or announcements of the educational institutions. So, sanctions against the school shall be without prejudice to the interests of the students, teachers, and employees. Next, Chapter 2, the administrative provisions. So, Section 70, the rulemaking authority. So, the Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports, charged with the administration and enforcement of this act, shall promulgate the necessary implementing rules and regulations. So, the Minister of Education, Culture, and Sports, so they are in charge of this act, so they shall promulgate and the necessary implementing rules and regulations. So, Section 71, the separability provision. So, any part of the provision of this act which may held invalid or unconstitutional shall not affect its remaining parts of provisions. So, Section 72, repeating clause. So, all laws or parts thereof inconsistent with any provision of this act shall be deemed repealed or modified as case may be. So, all laws are part of this that is inconsistent, so they shall be deemed repealed, or they have to be modified, so in any case. So, Section 73, the effectivity. So, this act shall take upon the approval. It is approved on September 11, 1982. And that's the end of our report, and thank you for listening.